Hey everyone, today I'm going to do a video on emotional intelligence. Many of you would have heard the term emotional intelligence in the past. It's been around with us probably, I guess, for about 30 odd years now and been really sort of popular, especially in sort of the wellness industry and also like the workplace as well. This is something that, people look for and has been known to actually be really, really beneficial to integrate into your life. Now we're going to look at the two aspects of emotional intelligence. Now the first part is like the personal, because it affects us on a personal level and the way that we are on a personal level. And, like understanding your own psychology is really, really empowering, and so having emotional intelligence really helps us kind of get a bit of a grip on that. And the second part is the way that you can interrelate with others. So strengthening connections, strengthening your relationship maybe with a team or with a family member or your children or your partner. These are really key important things. So it's kind of like the way that it works within you and then maybe the way that it works, with the people that you're interacting with. So let's hop on in, all right? So we've got emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is basically the intelligence of being able to understand with some precision the feelings and emotions and desires and maybe beliefs as well that actually are stirring within you, and understanding with some accuracy what they actually are. So just to give you an example, like I always maybe ask somebody, a client, so how are you feeling right now? And a lot of the time I get answers that are like, oh, I'm okay, or I feel good, or yeah, that's all right, and oh, I feel bad. But there's not much sort of, like higher resolution with those answers. So I got to kind of drill down deep and to kind of like get deep beneath that. So why is that? Now it's because a lot of us in society have been conditioned to kind of like push our emotions down. We've been conditioned to kind of like just kind of deal with things and get on with it, or you're in the workplace and you just have to like push through it, So here's the thing, like we want to unwind some of those things. We actually want to not necessarily be an emotional person all the time, but being able to understand that emotions are really powerful reflections that tell us the state of what is and sort of help us gauge what's actually going on within us. Because emotions are the language of the body, and they're there for a reason. They have a really good purpose. So we might as well use it for the purpose instead of just kind of pushing it aside and like pressing on with, what we think is important. Because ultimately, when you keep pushing things down, either they play out in like, draining you with energy, because it takes time and attention and energy to kind of keep those things down. It takes time and energy to kind of like unpack them, especially when they erupt and come up. So learning how to actually work and recalibrate and schedule and discern your emotions, like in real time, or at least getting better skilled at that, is a really powerful tool that you might want to start to develop. So realistically, with emotional intelligence, self-awareness is key. It's the first place that we begin. We start with self-awareness. Why is that? Well, if you don't know what you're feeling, if you're not actually aware on what you're feeling and why, if you can't look at, say, the rise, the cause, the effect, the response, and the reactions to that response, if you can't actually sort of discern that, then you're just kind of like acting blind. You don't even know what you're feeling, and it's like you're feeling something for a bloody good reason. There's a reason why you're feeling it. It's like your body and something's trying to tell you something. So maybe you should know how to pay attention to that. Okay? So self-awareness is, fundamental to all this. How do we develop this self-awareness? Now there's many techniques, but I'll give you a really simple one. And I'll tell you, maybe you could try this, yeah? So what I tell a lot of clients who might struggle with a bit of, awareness about their own emotions is we're going to cultivate we're going to orientate some sort of emotional sort of discrimination. We're going to learn how to actually sort of get to the core root of what we're actually feeling. And so one of the tips are, I say, well, look, why don't you set, say, about 6 different alarms during your day? And you could be at work, and this is when you kind of might maybe busy in your head. And so when your alarm goes off, you stop what you're doing. You might turn to your journal or a piece of paper and ask yourself, like, how am I feeling right now? And then write down how you're feeling. And then you might say, well, I feel good. Okay, and what else? What else am I feeling? Or where did it come from? Well, I feel good. Well, I don't know, like, I woke up this morning and I did my exercise and I had a healthy breakfast, and when I walked in, like the secretary at work gave me a big smile, and my bosses are pretty kind to me, and there's good energy going on in the place, and I've been doing well at work, I've kicked a few goals, and yeah, so I actually have a really good reason to feel good. Like, why not? I have a good reason, and like, why is it important to get to know that? Like, it's good to trace that back, because then you can start, you can give yourself some positive reinforcement and say, well, look, no emotions are better or worse per se, they're all just information, but I can tell you right now, feeling good and confident and enthusiastic and strong really does serve me here. It really, has a positive impact in where I am and what I'm here to do. So, I wouldn't mind cultivating a bit more of that. And conversely, maybe later in the day you feel a bit crummy, and you might write down, your alarm goes off, and you go, how do you feel? I'm like, well, actually I feel a bit flat. Well, why is that? And where did that come from? Well, let me think. I feel heavy, and I feel, like, well, I did eat, like, some fried chicken and a Coca-Cola, and I had a cigarette, on my lunch break, and I'm trying to quit smoking, and I'm trying to take better care of myself, and I sort of let myself down a little bit, and, actually I think maybe I'm feeling a bit of guilt about that, and I'm feeling a bit shameful to myself, and, I'm sort of judging myself, and I can feel like there's this inner critic having a go at me, and why would that be? Well, I've got these ideals about how I should be, and, realistically, if you have an ideal, it's also a judge, because an ideal needs to be upheld by something, so it becomes a judge, and so the loftier the ideal, like, the more intense is the judge. So, being able to acknowledge that and going, far out, I'm actually being really hard on myself, and, is that a bit of self-loathing, and really getting to the core of where this, these low feelings come from. And I know some of you out there might go, wow, that sounds like it's a lot of work, but I'm telling you, you can do this within the space of a couple of minutes. And the more you do it, the better you get at it, And it's really, really important stuff, like really knowing, like, what these feelings actually mean. Being able to actually sort of, like, discern what your emotions are is a very powerful thing. Then you get to use them. Then you get to actually know how to regulate them, right? Because if they're good and they're positive emotions that actually serve, like, and if they're negative emotions and they really bring something to your attention, then you can actually deal with that. You can actually get to the core of it and make the changes that you need to. And if it's something that serves, you can look at what you've done that's really worked and kind of give yourself some positive reinforcement and, try and encourage that you get that result again. You don't necessarily want to be attached to it. That may lead to some sort of suffering and become another ideal. However, you can foster behaviors and you can foster habits that, may make it more probable that you'll experience, like, a higher degree or higher vibration of emotions. I mean, at the end of the day, emotions determine the quality of your life. The quality of your emotions determine the quality of your life. So if you want to tune into higher quality emotions, you actually need to know what they are, when you're having them, and look at the cause of what they are, and maybe learn how to respond to them. So that response becomes maybe part of self-regulation. And again, that can be positive reinforcement. Most of the time, if it's a negative emotion, if we're having some sort of trauma, or we're having some sort of, like, we're feeling down, we're feeling depressed, knowing some good self-regulation techniques are going to be really, really important to you. You want to know a few things that you can actually do to help you kind of, like, move through this. And, one of the simple things that I've done, because I've experienced depression, I've been anxious, and I've been overwhelmed as well. And, like, when you're overwhelmed and depressed, like, it feels like there is no way out. It feels like this is it and there's no way out. And I'm like, well, I've come this far. I'm 41 years old and I've come this far and I'm still here. I've had a crack at a few things and I'm still here. I'm not homeless, and my kids are all right, and I'm okay, and it all works out in the end. So, the best way to sort of predict the future is to look at, like, the evidence of the past. Sorry, I've got an itchy nose. But I can look at my past and go, well, I've always managed to land on my feet, and I've always done pretty damn well at what I've put my mind to. So I can trust that. And yes, there have been times when I've been overwhelmed, and if I just sat with that and allowed time to pass, like, it sort of drifted away, and at some point that feeling sort of started to subside a little bit, and it didn't necessarily stay with me forever. And if all I can do right now is just sit and breathe and just inhale and hold it just for 4 seconds and slowly exhale, maybe that'll just ease some of the tension, and that can go in my tool belt, Or it might be like, I need to get back into my body because I'm so in my head, I'm so overwhelmed, and I know that doing some yoga or doing 30 odd push-ups or going for a jog helps me get back in my body. And when I'm back in my body, I feel me again and I'm out of this space, you know. And if you're more spiritually inclined, you might, you know, hand over whatever problems you've got to like a greater mind or to a higher source and just say, look, I'm not the creator and this is all clearly created by some greater force beyond me. And, you know, I'm just going to hand it over and have faith that, you know, that a greater mind can take care of that. You know, now not everybody is going to use all those tools, but, you know, certainly explore, certainly work out what works for you. You would have had something that you've done. So understanding some self-regulation, being able to bring yourself into a state of coherence. One of the most powerful ones that I always recommend is literally just put your hand on your heart. Think about something that brings a lot of love into your life. You might think about a puppy dog, or you might think about a loved one. You might think about a child, and actually think and reflect about how much joy and love you have for that person or that creature or whatever it is, or an experience. And hold yourself in a place of love and just have gratitude for that. You know, just be grateful that you've experienced that. You know, step into that emotion. You know, step into that. And that brings you into coherence with higher vibrations, with things like gratitude and love. You know, it's a hell of a lot better than feeling depressed. And if it only increases your, you know, if it only takes you out of depression by maybe 15%, well, that's a hell of a lot better than being at rock bottom, isn't it? So like having these little tools are really beneficial, and learning how to actually regulate yourself, bring yourself to a place of stasis is an important part of self-regulation. Now, of course, these things require practice. You know, you didn't get where you are now, just happened to wake up there one day. You had to do some work towards that. You actually had to like cultivate some skill, you know, and some competency to actually be where you are now, whether you're a leader or a manager or a parent, you know, even to drive a car. You didn't just do it straight away. You actually had to be really mindful and really conscious of what you were doing. And, you know, you maybe became really quite motivated, you know, to focus on what you were doing. And it took time. All right, and motivation isn't just about being motivated to do the work. It's about actually also looking at your motivations in life. So this is the other aspect. And these three here are where we're working on the personal self. So the way motivation works, dang, itchy nose. But the way motivation works is it's kind of like, okay, maybe I want to quit smoking. And maybe it's something that I've been thinking about for a really long time. And you know, I've got this self-awareness and I've got some self-regulation techniques that I've worked on now, and I've started to put those together. I've got a bit of a tool belt that I can turn to, and, you know, this tension starts creeping up, and I'm aware of that. I watch it happen, and it sort of kind of compels me to want to have a cigarette. And I'm like, so my motivation to have a cigarette is, it's this tension that comes up. Okay, great. Well, you know, let's look at it even deeper. What does having the cigarette help, you know, what does it do? Well, it kind of like, you know, it's kind of gives me, makes me feel better for a little bit. It gives me a break from that tension. And so it's like, oh, okay, so you're actually motivated because that tension is pulling you out of balance. So you're actually motivated to pull yourself into a place of balance. And that's really noble. That's really a decent thing to do as a human being. And that's part of self-regulation. So you're really just self-regulating yourself. You might be doing it through a lower vehicle or a lower aspect in regards to maybe smoking cigarettes, because ultimately it's harmful. You know, we know that cigarettes aren't going to make you live longer. You know, we know that they're actually not going to improve your health, and they're pretty detrimental. So, you know, maybe we can think of a better way. So like, it kind of works like this. When you can kind of separate it out and really like look at your motivations, look at and go, well, this is an impulse that I'm having. I'm having this impulse, and tune in and look at it. Okay, it's because I'm feeling a bit tense. It's kind of like I feel this tension build up, and it's just time to have a cigarette. But that's an automatic response. That's a neural pathway that's been connected and bonded over a long period of time. And that's like getting a knife and just kind of dragging it over a piece of wood over a period of time, and then that becomes a very deep groove. It becomes, you know, a path of least resistance. So it becomes automatic. I just feel tension, go have a cigarette. Automatic response. But by being able to actually interrupt that pattern, by actually looking at your motivation and interrupting that pattern, you're taking yourself away from that well-formed neural connection, and you're stopping and you're looking at something. And you know, you can employ some other self-regulation techniques, because you think, well, hang on a minute, I'm feeling tension, and I know that having a cigarette makes me feel a bit better, but I know that it doesn't take much longer before I enter into some shame and guilt, because I know that I should quit. because, you know, it's bad for my health, and, you know, my family would like me to quit, and it would mean a lot to them as well, and I know I stink, and all these other reasons why, but I just can't seem to kick it. But maybe I can just interrupt that pattern for now, and maybe I can train myself, you know, start to stop myself having that, going direct to that neural connection. And you might say, well, look, I'm still going to have a cigarette, okay, but before I go and do that, I'm going to sit here and I might practice that breathing technique that I talked about before. I might sit here and just do some deep, slow breathing, and, you know, I might do 5 or 6 of those, and then just check in with myself. How am I feeling now? And you might realize, oh, actually, I feel a lot less tense than I did before. And, you know, and my night, whilst I don't feel completely better, I noticed that I've taken a lot of the edge off. And just acknowledging that and actually giving yourself some thanks that you've actually done that work and interrupted that pattern, and some positive reinforcement in time goes a long way to helping you eventually quit the cigarette, but it helps form those new habits, and it helps you, you know, create better self-regulation techniques, and you can see then what motivates you, you know. So this is why it's really important. It's really powerful stuff. And this is, at the end of the day, you start to accomplish, you know, this really, really well, and start to practice. It happens really fast, and you can start coaching yourself. And that's amazing. Like, wouldn't it be great if we all knew how to coach ourselves? If we were all aware people that knew how to deal with our psychology and could actually look at ourselves from, like, maybe, you know, a decentralized point of view, and actually observe, well, hang on, this is what's going on for me. And then coming back into that space and owning it and making some better choices. That's kind of what it is about being, you know, being a leader, you know, is self-governing yourself. Not necessarily, doesn't always have to be a team, but certainly governing yourself and being a responsible adult is an amazing thing. After a while, when you've cultivated these things, you move into the interpersonal side of stuff, which means your relationships with others. Empathy. Now, empathy is just an amazing quality that makes you a very reasonable human being to be around. And, you know, if you've ever seen little kids, and like I can testify, I've got 3 kids, and each one of them, when they're young, they watch cartoons, and like there might be something that happens, and there's like some sad emotions being portrayed in the cartoons, and, you know, I'd look at my little son and see how he actually feels sad for that cartoon. He feels it as well. So empathy is the ability to not only be aware of your own feelings and like know the regulation techniques and obviously your motivations as well, but being able to be aware when somebody else is experiencing something, or just a little alarm bell that goes, oh, hey, you know, Betty over there looks like she's really struggling right now, and, you know, maybe she could really use someone who could actually just kind of just check in with her and say, hey, are you okay? I sort of noticed that you looked a little bit stressed, and, you know, is there anything going on, you know? And at the end of the day, they might not need fixing, and it's not our role to fix people, but sometimes it's just really nice to acknowledge and just say, hey, look, you know, and, you know, someone might, you know, start opening up to you about that, and you might just say, hey, look, that sounds really rough, and I can see that it's really affected you, and like, I can't imagine what it would be like to have gone through that experience, but, you know, I want you to know that, like, I feel for you, and, you know, if you really want to talk, I'm happy to talk to you about it, you know. And when you do these things, like, this is really what makes bonds happen. This is what helps people actually build a lot of trust, and this is what makes a powerful leader and, you know, just amazing, incredible human being to be around. Like, it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much energy to actually be there for others. And, you know, when you start to share this is when you create threads of interconnectedness, you know, and in the same way neural pathways are connected, you know, this is where interconnected people come together, and there's cohesion, social cohesion. And it starts from a place of empathy. But you can't be empathetic with someone unless you're aware of your own self. So you do have to do your own work so that you can help others. Now you might say, well, look, you know, what's the point of helping others? And it's like, well, there's a huge point to helping others. Don't you realize that, like, you know, the way that you respond and reflect to other people, it comes back to you tenfold, you know? Like, if you work in a team, then you know exactly what I'm talking about, you know? And if you've got a family, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not hard to be empathetic. It doesn't take much, but it does require a bit of emotional intelligence. It does require a bit of courage as well to kind of reach out and say, hey, look, I feel you, you know? This obviously works towards building better relationships, better social skills. It makes you a more likable person. It makes you more of a trusted leader. It makes you somebody who other people gravitate towards. You might, you know, take time to listen to. You build up a bit of like social credit with people when you're empathetic. You know, you build up that social credit, and that sort of helps you have better social skills. And who wouldn't want better social skills? We're community-based beings. None of us have gotten here alone. No one got this far on their own. We all needed somebody at some point, and we all do bounce off each other. And, if this is cultivated in the workplace, then it really does bring a sense of like synergy into a team. And it's really, really important because you've got to have deep trust with the team. I mean, my trade in my past is I was a chef, and you must have seen the chef shows, and you see how stressed out they are, and it's you totally depend on each other to be responsible, to kind of have each other's backs. And if you don't, then like things go sideways, and that's bloody hard when that happens. And there's kind of like, it really helps when you have good, strong social cohesion, and there's a certain personal responsibility to want to be a better person, to want to be a great team member for others, because again, we didn't all get here alone, and no matter where you're going, others are going to need you and you're going to need them, so you might as well get the skills developed that are going to help you along the way and help others as well. Yeah, so I hope you got something out of that. I hope that there are some pearls in this that maybe have opened your mind up towards why you might want to look into emotional intelligence. This is one of the 5 key aspects that I sort of go into on the path of self-mastery. And yeah, again, I hope you got some value out of that. If you'd like to click the button, I'm happy to do like free strategy calls. If you want to look at my website, it's www.mindvital.com.au. There'll be a link somewhere below. Check out some of the programs and see if they're for you. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks again for watching. Take care. Bye for now.